The debate around granting compulsory licenses to ramp up the vaccine production has gained center stage. Even the Supreme Court, in its suo motu hearing on COVID related issues, has asked the government to strongly consider granting compulsory licensing to pharma companies. However, is the solution or just a part of a larger picture? As part of our digital initiatives, we are hosting a webinar on the topic: Is compulsory licensing the solution to India's vaccine crisis? Let's unravel the complexities surrounding compulsory licensing and discuss the road ahead to solving India's vaccine crisis. Joining us on the webinar today, we have Mr. Adish Nargalkar, partner Khaitan and Co., Mr. Sukhdev Kujairam, partner Remfrey and Sagar, Dr. Deepa Tikku, partner KNS Partners, and Mr. Rahul Dev, patent attorney, practice head, law office of Rahul Dev. I welcome you all to the webinar, and we look forward to hearing your thoughts on the contentious issues.
Thank you so much, Krishnendra. Let me welcome all of you. Krishnendra is our editorial lead on BW Legal World. Today, what we are discussing is very topical. The last 7 weeks have been, if I may put it mildly, very traumatic for the country and for a lot of individuals. And all of us are looking at solutions to be able to get on top of the only solution, that is vaccination. So today at BW Business World and BW Legal World, we're looking forward to having these 4 experts who understand legal nuances and possibly give us solutions to how this logjam of compulsory licensing can be solved. And as Krishnendra has already introduced, we have 4 leaders from the legal domain. We have Mr. Adish Nargolkar, who's the partner at Khaitan and Company, who's joining us. We have Dr. Deepa Tikku, who is a partner and KNS partner. She's joining us. Mr. Sukadev Kurajim is joining us from Remfrey and Sagar. And last but not the least, we have an independent patent attorney in Mr. Rahul Dev joining us. Let me start by asking each one of you your opening comments on this issue of compulsory licensing. Is compulsory licensing the solution to India's vaccine crisis and the answer to India's vaccination program? Let me start by getting Mr. Adish Nargolkar for his opening comments, and after Adish has spoken, we'll get each one of the participants and get into a freewheeling discussion. Adish, your opening comments.
Thank you, Dr. Batra. Well, before we get into the compulsory licensing and whether that is a solution to the vaccination problem, let us understand whether there are and what are the IPs that are involved around the vaccines. Now, first and foremost, we may have a patent in relation to the vaccine per se. Second could be the underlying technology. And we know that there are patents for the underlying technology, which are basically the technology used to develop these vaccines. For example, AstraZeneca has a patented technology. We have Pfizer, who also has a patented technology for the lipid nanoparticle technology. The third one would be the raw materials. Now, if you are considering the raw materials also could be a subject matter of a patent. And the fourth and foremost, and probably one of the most important things, would be the know-how, which goes behind the manufacturing of these methods. Now, considering all these 4, now let us delve into the compulsory licensing issues. Now, when we are looking at the compulsory licensing, and in particularly section 92, which is a special provision for compulsory licensing on notification by the central government. Now, this provision is applicable only under circumstances of national emergency, extreme emergency, or in cases of public non-commercial use. In this section, or in this case, any person interested can apply for a compulsory licensing. The patent office, that's the controller, would consider the application and grant the license basis certain terms and conditions. The patent office needs to ensure that the articles which are manufactured by this license by the licensee are made available to the public at the lowest price, which is the case, and should also ensure that the patentees derive a reasonable advantage from their rights. Now, whether compulsory licensing should be invoked or not is also to be considered, because we have certain other sections under the Patents Act, like sections 47, which talks about that the government may import the patented product or the process for its own use, and Section 100, which gives the power to the central government to use the inventions for the purpose of the government. Considering all these, the question that comes forth is that whether the mere access to the patents, even if free of cost, without the know-how, will it enable production of the vaccines in India? And this is what I think
and to the same quality and standards.
Absolutely.
And that's where the issue of indemnity also comes in. So thank you, Adish, for your opening comment. It sets the stage for interesting debate and solutions. Let me bring in Dr. Deepa Tikku, who's a partner at K&S Partners. For her, all yours. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. And thank you, BW Legal, for having me here for this very interesting discussion. And as Adish has already elaborated what exactly is a compulsory license in the context of what we're talking here today, the provisions have been in place in the Patents Act, keeping in mind some of these issues. They were envisaged way back, in 2005, before 2005, when India became fully TRIPS compliant. But the question here is today that we are debating is whether this provision will actually be useful in ramping up production. And it's not only a question of ramping up production, it's also a question of finally getting a jab in the arm, because that's exactly what you're looking at. You're not only looking at manufacturing, but you're also looking at the entire, from the process of manufacturing till the time the jab gets into the arm of the eligible people. So those are my opening remarks. I really think that, the government has been taking whatever steps were needed from last year. In fact, in January 21, we already know that the regulatory body gave emergency use approval for 2 vaccines, and followed by now Sputnik also. And we all have been reading up a lot of reports around these 3 vaccines and how the manufacturing capacities are being ramped up to the extent possible by these 2 companies, at least in India. Of course, Covishield has been licensed from AstraZeneca, Oxford, and Bharat Biotech, of course, has the indigenous vaccine. 1,068 million people are the people who are 18 plus year eligible in India. And we have already crossed around 200 million doses, which we have provided to our citizens. But still, we have a projected estimate of around 1629 million doses by the end of December 21. And there is a supply gap, demand analysis, which really needs to be done as to whether these projected numbers we will be able to achieve them to some extent or not. So let's see when the debate goes in. Maybe I can speak a little more about this in detail. Thanks.
And especially the solutions, because both the government and the private manufacturers who are well within rights to safeguard their IPs, and also the quality, as Adish and you, Dr. Tikku, both have said, it's not just about production, it is the right quality, because it's a very specialized.
Yeah.
And
especially because this is not like another even a drug. I mean, it's a complicated biological molecule. So
absolutely. So
complexities
we'll come to you for solutions. But let me bring in Sukadev at this point for his opening remarks. Sukadev, you heard Adish, you heard Dr. Tikku. Would love to hear your detailed opening remarks.
Yes. Hi, everyone. So I think my co-panelists have already given a brief introduction about the different provisions in the patent statute in India, and about the broad, background of the issue. But I think what we are discussing today is a smaller subset of a broader issue. I would like to bring in the issue of IP waiver, which India and South Africa had proposed last year to the WTO. It's still in motion. Some countries have supported it I would say very significantly. Just the beginning of this month, the US has given its backing at least in terms of patent waiver for vaccines. But and cut to the present situation, if I am to answer the question which we are discussing today, if compulsory licensing the solution to India's vaccine crisis, I would say it in a single word: no, it is not the solution. Because it's just a flexibility in the whole gamut of things. Because like Deepa slightly touched upon, it's just because you are forcing someone to license their product, you may not necessarily get the know-how. So a more proper way would be through voluntary licensing. And we have seen so many examples of that in the present landscape in India. There have been so many voluntary licenses which have been granted. We can get into it deeper as we go along. But for now, I'll stop myself here.
Thank you so much, Sukhdev, for addressing the question that we started with: is compulsory licensing the solution to India's vaccination solution? And clearly you're saying compulsory licensing is not. Voluntary licensing is, because it's a very specialized. I think all the three panelists have agreed on it. We'll come to the nuances of it as we move into the second round. But last but not the least, let me bring in Mr. Rahul Dev. Rahul, your inputs on the opening comments for the solution and whether compulsory licensing is the solution.
Thank you, Dr. Batra. So yeah, I will begin with the same answer that my co-panelists have started, that no, it is not the explicit solution, because since most of the audience may be non-legal, so I'll start with a very layman understanding of the vaccine. So the vaccine, as far as the Pfizer vaccine is concerned, it is an mRNA-based vaccine that is different from the AstraZeneca version that is being used in India as Covishield, which is based on the adenovirus that is using a part of the virus itself. So this fact, combined with the fact that whether the patents on this research were filed before the onset of pandemic, because research is always 5-6 years in a fast-forward mode, or these patents are filed after the research started, after the onset of pandemic. So if these are filed after the onset of pandemic, there may be a highly likely scenario that such patents may not be available in the public domain. So unpublished patents are as good as trade secrets till the time they are made public for inspection. As far as Indian law is concerned, you can expedite the publication, but you cannot delay the publication for your business interest. So that means before discussing the technicalities of compulsory licensing and license to be issued by the government, we need to have the major eligibility of a granted patent. So hypothetically, if a company may have filed a patent under expedite route, expedite publication, expedite examination, if and all it has been granted, then only compulsory license can be considered. As far as Section 100 is concerned, like one co-panelist mentioned, that is provision wherein the government has the right to use any invention. That specifically mentions that it is applicable for inventions as a whole, which includes granted as well as filed application. So we need to see which section can be invoked and that can help the overall vaccine problem to reach a stage where a majority of population is vaccinated. But compulsory licensing, I would end, is not the only solution. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rahul, for saying compulsory licensing is not the only solution. Then let's get into the nuances of it. Let me start with Dr. Deepa Tikku this time. I'll get you in, Rahul, at second, Sukhdev was third, and Adish in the end. Now, specifically, Dr. Tikku, can vaccines be reverse engineered without inventors, and can their know-how be shared with everyone? And I'm asking you from a very strictly legal point. And in emergencies, which is clearly, this is a national emergency, what can the governments do to be able to co-opt the private players? You'll have to unmute yourself, Dr.
Thank you, Dr. Batra. You've asked a very important question. I think some of the myths also associated with all this issue of compulsory licensing, especially with regard to vaccines, need to be clarified. The issue is that the process of vaccine development and manufacturing has various steps. It has several steps. And these are biological molecules, as I already said. They are not small molecules like chemical compounds, which could be reverse engineered, reading a text from a book or from a specification of a patent application. The steps are complex. They also have, as also Adhish mentioned, there may be several kinds of IP associated with various steps, including the manufacturing steps and so on and so forth. So there is not a single kind of an IP that could actually unlock the secret to this manufacturing vaccine. There's a lot of know-how involved because it's a very sophisticated process, which basically is in the development as well as in the final manufacturing. So there are a lot of key ingredients, which include supervision at every critical step of vaccine manufacturing. And that's the actual know-how. In these present times, for whatever, it also creates a very complex situation, because earlier when these kinds of licensing would happen, the original innovator or the people who were doing the licensing out would actually be present on the site, be hand-holding the people who are manufacturing, and be overseeing and supervising the entire process till the time everybody was confident that not a single process is, there is any error in it, because the stakes are very, very high, as you understand. So definitely reverse engineering becomes a big issue. The issue is still that we still need to have more focus on voluntary licensing, as Sukhdev mentioned. And within that voluntary licensing, the issue of know-how will definitely be there. So even if you have a patent and a compulsory license, you say that, okay, there's a patent and government invokes Section 100. For that, even a granted patent is not required. Even after filing of a patent application at any time, the government can come in and take up the patent on its own. And of course, the issue of compensation will always remain there, and they have to compensate the innovator on that. But even then, the vaccine eventually will not even have a single patent. Like your Covishield right now, it's actually based on an older platform, which is covered by 2 already granted patents. But then the actual Covishield, which is now prepared, will have separate patents on its own. So it's not so easy as it sounds. Definitely reverse engineering requires a lot of other nuanced approaches. Thanks.
Thank you so much for those specific comments. Rahul, your comments?
Yeah. So, see, as far as reverse engineering is concerned, in simple terms, it means that reading the patent document, reading the patent claims, and then trying to walk backwards to make the commercial version of the invention that is covered under the scope of those patent claims. So like Dr. Tikku mentioned, it's not a simple process. Even if you give the claims to a person who is expert in the field, then also that person needs the highest level of compliance with the facility and the best practices to even make a trial version of the vaccine. Forget about the commercial version. And when the issue of reverse engineering is being discussed, I would also want to highlight the fact that in pharmaceutical sector, there is a very controversial term which is in sync with reverse engineering, and that is called evergreening. So evergreening means that when the patent life is ending, then the claims can be re-engineered. So here we are, like, the purpose of discussing this point is that we are too early as far as the patent life cycle is concerned. So at this point, even the reverse engineering, even if you share the document, the secrets with the entity who is manufacturing, it's not practically possible to create the reverse engineering versions in the market. Yeah.
Absolutely. The only thing I would say, you said too early. I think when there is an emergency situation, I think it's sometimes too late if we don't act. I make that philosophical point. But let me bring in Sukhdev and then Adhish and ask them. At present, there is a dual pricing policy for the COVID vaccines, which allows different prices to be charged on vaccines sold to the center, states, and private hospitals. Center, state, and private hospitals, the 3, major buyers. There have been concerns whether private companies will ensure equities between states. What is your opinion on this matter? Do you think there must be a uniform fixed pricing for all 3 and for all COVID medicines? First Sukhdev and then Adhish.
Yes, I think this issue was taken up by the Supreme Court also just recently in April. That was part of the directions, this part of the question which they asked the central government, what are they going to do about it? And they have made it clear that it would be better to have a uniform system. And I think there was an affidavit filed by the center I think that was on May 9th. So there they have said that they are in the picture. They have not left it to be completely between the state and the vaccine manufacturers. But I understand, as far as the pricing issue is concerned, a uniform one would be the best, the ideal situation. But the way things are going now, right now, I think we should let it be and try to make it more uniform as we go along, because it's a very dynamic and evolving situation. There has to be some incentive, because it's always a question of give and take. So there has to be some
dwell on
incentive.
this give and take. Who's giving what, who's taking what, and what is the middle ground on this?
I would say that yes, in this scenario which we are all faced with, there should not be a moral deficit from either party. But again, the whole system, I mean, if we look at the patent system, the patent system has been in place for a long time and it has worked. So if we and similarly, the pricing system is a reflection of that indirectly, or whichever way you take it. So and again, it may extend to the vaccination for all people, all Indian citizens, which the government should look to provide as we go along. Because right now there is no free vaccination as such, though there are so many schemes have been rolled out by specific state governments giving vaccines for free, even for 18 to 44-year-old. But it is not so uniform as on date. So I think we'll have to play it by the ear, and it has to we need to give some time to the government and to the different private players who are concerned. We need to give it some time.
But I would say that the urgency is now. If the purpose of the vaccine is to be able to slow down the contamination and save lives, we cannot spend time. As they say, coming from the legal and the judicial fraternity, justice delayed is justice deprived. Similarly, vaccine delayed is life lost. So clearly, I would like Adish to focus, give his comments, and possibly then give us a solution. Adish, your comments.
Yes. So my personal view, Dr. Batra, is that it should be uniform, which is uniform X factory. That is, say for example, we have today in India 2 centers, that is Pune and Hyderabad, where the vaccines are being manufactured. When the vaccines are to be transported to various states, the transport cost is a big concern, and therefore I'm saying that vis-a-vis the transport, my view is, why should the vaccine manufacturers be at a loss? As Sukhdev mentioned, it's a give and take. The vaccine manufacturers are trying their level best to manufacture all these vaccines. If they are to be transported to various states, it should be uniform, that is X factory price, and thereafter the transportation cost should be borne by the states. That's my view.
Okay, let me now deep into 1 or 2 more legal aspects and then bring Krishna in. Now, let me ask this question to Adesh first, you, then to Sukhdev, and take the question to Dr. Tikku and Rahul also. Different courts in India, under suo motu lawsuits and PI petitions, have started asking the central government to issue compulsory licensing of vaccines and for medicines which are used in COVID-19 use, supply of essential goods, oxygen. To what extent these directives are actually being acted upon by the central governments? Are there any specific policies that need to be enacted? Are there laws that need to be kind of seen in the context of what we are dealing with? First you, Adish, then Dr. Tikku, and then I'll go around the house.
So to answer your question, Dr. Batra, I'll just go back to what I was speaking at the initial comment that I made. that when we are looking at compulsory licensing and the PILs that are being filed, it again raises the same question that whether compulsory licensing is the solution. And according to, I think, all the panelists have, I think, one voice that compulsory licensing is not the only solution. And therefore, we will need to look at other solutions and not just compulsory licensing. As I did mention, and I think Dr. Tiku also said the same, that know-how is equally important, and just a compulsory licensing and getting the patent rights are not going to be a solution vis-a-vis the manufacturing of the vaccines. Today, the entire issue is the ramping up of the manufacturing of these vaccines. Just by getting a compulsory license, we would not be in a position to solve this issue.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tiku. Your inputs. You'll have to unmute yourself, Dr. Tiku. Unmute continues to be the most important word after COVID in 2021. We were hoping in 2021 we won't use both these words, COVID and unmute. But unfortunately, we are having to use them. Your perspective, Dr. Tiku.
So your question is around whether the government is actually doing anything with regard to the courts asking the central government to issue the CL, right?
That's right. And the implementation of that.
Yeah. So, my answer to that is that recently the government has actually submitted more than a 90-page affidavit before the Supreme Court, giving the position of the government on this aspect. And the government has actually stated that, they are at the moment, and the government has actually said that at the moment, they do not see compulsory licensing as the solution for the issues at hand. And the government has also said that they are in the process of diplomatic negotiations or talks with the foreign players at that level to actually ramp up production by way of voluntary licensing or importation of different kinds of vaccines into India, which are otherwise approved by in different parts of the world, like Pfizer, Moderna, etc. As I speak, I think the government has also opened a global tender for inviting bids from the foreign players for different vaccines, provided they are also parallelly looking at the regulatory approvals which are required under the Indian law for approvals. And I think what really needs to be done in this case is that while we all have talked about the issue of CL, and in the previous question you were also asking about the dual pricing policy, we also need to look at it on a policy level. I believe, at a policy level, the temperament or the focus should not right now be on giving everything free to everybody. There is a big class of people in India who can afford it. So the issue is really not about making the political point of giving everything free to people. Wherever you are giving free, the government has taken out a lot of quota for free distribution as well. They are giving most of the vaccines, 50% of that to the governments, state governments for free. But at the same time, pricing at this time should not be the key factor. It should be that the vaccine should reach, and the proper incentive to the companies should also be there to do it, to actually invest more into it. So this brings me back to the issue of other policy, which is that you have to invest somewhere to be self-independent also, because the next pandemic will be lurking nearby, somewhere else. So now we're having black fungus. Where is the compulsory licensing for that? You're still having rifampicin, which is not available. So the issue is about, we have to anticipate certain things and have more focus on really looking at holistic issues rather than only very simplistic solutions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think one of the lessons that we need to learn from the pandemic is, as we say in business and management jargon, it is not a black swan event, it's a grey rhino event. The grey rhino appears more often than a black swan. And, as you talked about the black fungus, there's a talk of a third wave, or now we have to live with the fact that there can be other viruses in the future. So whatever we do today will become a basis for action in the immediate future. I hope not, but if at all there is issues like that, we're able to come up with a policy that gets all the stakeholders on the table fast, and we have a framework which allows us to move forward and actually solve the challenge for which those drugs have been, those solutions have been brought out. Let me bring in Krishnendra. Krishnendra, why don't you take the next set of questions? So Joshi, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Am I audible?
Yes, Krishnendra, you are.
So, my question for Sukhdev sir is, considering the present scenario, how effective will a TRIPS waiver prove to be in the current scenario, as it does not bind the pharma companies to give out their formula anyway?
Yes, this was the point which I was making at the start. The overall patent waiver which India and South Africa jointly proposed, it has over 120 countries supporting it now. But it's a very complicated situation because there's no straightforward solution as such available. I would say that because there are, like Deepa has also mentioned, there's so many platforms, vaccine platforms where this vaccines are being manufactured. Complete patent waiver on the on COVID-19 medicines or vaccines would impact other other areas of the medical research. It may be to do with cancer. It may be to do with other other diseases. We have to remember that while COVID-19 is on, so are other diseases. So we have to be mindful of the entire scenario. We have to look at the big picture here. So just because if you take away, if you go ahead with the patent waiver, very importantly, research and development between all these big pharmaceutical companies and there is collaboration between the big pharmaceutical companies. All that is based on patents. That is the bulk. That's the basis, the fundamentals of having an agreement. So if that goes, and it would be a very uncertain environment. And, there's so much uncertainty in this world right now that we need some sort of certainty. It's better in this complex ecosystem of the pharmaceutical world and its and research and development. I think it's better to rely on known and effective mechanisms to combat the present situation we are in. Because patent waiver is an unknown is an unknown factor which we are bringing to the table. So that will impact, what all impact it will have, that will need to be analyzed in detail. And one very important part of this is that even if you waive the patent rights, any third party, any company who wants to manufacture the vaccine has to go through the approval from the drug authority. So whether they would be effectively able to do that, whether they would be able to comply with the standards of quality, safety and efficacy of the drug form which they're going to do without active involvement of the innovator company, that's a very crucial question which we need to, because safety efficacy is very important in this role, in the whole situation we are now in. So I believe that patent waiver is a very complex thing. It needs to be really thought out. But again, I would say that if the WTO does come to a consensus, that's how they operate. The WTO operates on consensus. So if they come to a consensus, if they come to a flexible agreement, I think it would be an ideal situation, but we are not in an ideal situation right now. So we need to take what is more practical, what is more known, than rather going into the unknown to solve this unprecedented health crisis that we are all faced with the whole world is faced with.
Thank you, Sukhdev. Rahul, I'd ask you to take the same question that Krishnendra asked in terms of trips, and of course, Sukadev is saying that we need to have some kind of basis, and we have a base and a framework available. Within that framework, let's try to solve that by getting all parties together. But big pharma companies are big lawyers, and you all represent law firms. But right now, it's a humanitarian crisis, and it can be bigger than what it has been in the last 7 weeks if we really do not address. And with the virus getting down to the rural India, it can be even more dangerous. And as the American leadership and the administration knows that neither they are safe or anybody is safe in the world till everyone is vaccinated. And with India, with 1.4 billion people, needs to vaccinate. So, Rahul, I'd like to hear from you, your point of view, and possibly a solution. Right up front, you said that voluntary licensing is the solution. So give us a sense of what the detailed solution is.
Right. So I will start with the part of the question where you said the entire population needs to be vaccinated. So see, we are already reading some news about the booster jab. That is the third jab that is needed in the countries where the majority of population is currently getting vaccinated. So it's not just the problem is not just about the present situation. It's just that we are in the middle of a long drawn war with lot of many battles, right? With first wave, second wave. And as of now, before I get into the technicality of policy, what we need is I want to stay apolitical, but what we need is a uniform narrative from the government. We have seen different ministries, different departments talking about different targets of procuring the doses. There is no clarity. As far as the pricing is concerned, that's a different issue altogether. But accessibility and availability is the major issue, because pricing is something which is a tussle between state and center, and availability of raw material, other issues. And one more point is that I want to highlight, I'm just trying to tread here on a related issue, which is that there were a lot of news about the exports that were being done, especially in January, February, and those early parts of the year when the pandemic was silent. There was no second wave around. So those exports, now we are getting to know that those exports were part of contractual obligations of the vaccine manufacturers. So the primary issue is that whether the government made a blunder in broadcasting the contractual obligations of private entities as their export initiatives. So I don't have any authentic evidence where I can rely and pinpoint that these many doses were part of contractual obligations and these many doses were procured by government out of their free will, which were meant for export. So now, in light of these facts, which are in public domain, a debate around trips and all becomes moot, because whatever we say, the government is on a different tangent altogether. So in conclusion, I would want that the first is to set a narrative that suppose there was an affidavit in the court that said that compulsory licensing is not the solution. So whether TRIPS waiver or IP waiver is the solution, and if yes, how will it impact the situation at ground level when cases are increasing, deaths are multiplying? So in essence, I would want that policy to be connected with the real life event. Then only we can have a practical solution on both.
Understood. Dr. Tikku, you again alluded to the solution. Adish said, what is the solution and what do you think will realistically happen so that the logjam is broken and we have a real way forward? What is the likely scenario? How do you think this stalemate will come to an end?
Yeah, so Dr. Batra, as I said, this is, as everybody actually has said, that you also said, this is an emergency. And the problem is that we don't have an instant Maggie 2-minute formula for this. Okay, so...
anyway, Maggie, though Nestle is a great company and Maggie has come up with Atta variants, it's not necessarily the best thing to eat. It can solve things, but...
Yeah, but it's not a 2-minute. It's not a 2-minute magic solution. There's no quick fix to it.
That's the point.
And the issue is that even though the TRIPS waiver, as Sukhdev also mentioned, the TRIPS waiver is going on, and the negotiations have started. Almost more than 100 countries are now backing it up, and the US has come up saying that they can look at the text-based waiver. But the negotiations will take at least a year. and this has been officially stated by the WTO as well. So we can't have that kind of a window for us that the WTO will have a TRIPS waiver or the IP waiver, and then we can go forward and then have everything with us and then formulate things. We have to go what we need to do today, what we need to do 6 months later, and what we can do like 1 year later or something. And we don't know when this pandemic is actually going to end. So the issue is, what do you do today? I believe that what the government is currently doing is that they are trying to engage diplomatically with a lot of foreign players. They are also trying to engage with the Indian players, trying to make them more capable of ramping up their productions. They are also looking at licensing out for example, Bharat Biotech has already licensed out the Covaxin technology to 7 manufacturers. Okay, 5 manufacturers, sorry. So there now Indian, and out of that 3 are public sector undertakings like the Indian Immunologicals, etc. And now they are going to produce, but it will take time. Even for Bharat Biotech, if you give a bulk order today, they will take 3 months to manufacture that lot. So the government has to give the order in anticipation. They have to give advance money to the companies. Then the companies will make it and bring it to the market. Otherwise, this gap you see, suddenly the vaccine vanishes out of the market. It's not because of patents. It's because there is no advance bookings made, bulk orders given, so that the manufacturing can be done in the given period of time. And you have a constant supply coming in. I think that has to be done. The supply gap, the supply demand gap has to be assessed properly. Second is the logistics. Now, if you allow the foreign players to come in, which are mostly on the messenger RNA vaccines, they have a huge cold storage issue. The cold shipping issue is there. Cold chain issue is there. The current vaccines are perfect. We can actually convert some of our cold chain facility, which we use for food transportation, into the vaccine transportation, and we can do that. I think government is already working on those channels. But to have those things here, do we have the advanced preparation for that kind of a cold chain mechanism? Where are the vials? Where are the bottles? Where are the crimps? So, there is, as I said, it's not only around patents, where patents get waived off, you manufacture, but they have to be actually reaching the people, the arms of the eligible people. And then we have no policy as of today, and I hope that we do that very soon for children below 18 years. We are not talking about them at all, just assuming that they're okay and they don't need a vaccination. We haven't even thought of that. So I think many of these things will have to be looked at. And I'm also talking about remote locations, the CoWIN facility not accessible to everybody, the digital, the requirement of everybody having a digital interface to log in and register. So many other things, the challenges are there, but the focus is only on the patents. So here, what we are trying to tell is that this may not be the only solution. This is only one piece of the pie. There are other emergent solutions which also need to be looked holistically to get the vaccine shortage addressed.
Thank you so much. I agree that, this is an important point, but there are other aspects. And I just want to remind, I know Rahul made the right points, but Rahul, the government has said publicly, and I take it seriously, that at December, each Indian would be vaccinated. Now, even if we have to work, let's say it takes 3 months, we have December, November, October. By September, we have to have at least enough supply for 2 doses. So clearly, we need to solve the issue of manufacturing, Dr. Tikut, today. Because really, I am an optimistic person, and I'll be optimistic about the fact that once this is solved, then all the other supply chain issues. For example, I'm aware that Blue Star and all refrigeration companies have come up with solutions and are working with the government of India to be able to make sure if there's cold storage needed, that capability is being created as we speak. The last 4 months, they've been working with the government since January on that. And clearly, they also see it as their responsibility to help fellow countrymen and also a business proposition. So clearly, I think whether it's the case of bottles or vials, of all related solutions that kind of bring the overall solution of vaccination a reality are dependent on, in some way, on this first step, if I may say, because production and the right production, as you all have said, that it's a very specialized and a sensitive domain. That's important. Let me bring in Adhish at this point. Adhish, what do you think is the likely scenario? If you had to bet your money, what do you think will kind of be the solution? And when do you see that happening? Do you see that happening in the next 2 weeks, 4 weeks? Give us a sense of what do you think will happen.
I wish I had the answer, Dr. Batra, to this question. That
no, I clearly know that
yeah.
Mr. Narendra Modi is the Prime Minister of the country and Mr. Harshvardhan is the Health Minister. I know you're not the Health Minister of the country, but you have an understanding of how a lot of stakeholders would think in this scenario, and hence I posted that to you.
So, Dr. Batra, we are addressing all these things, and the key reason of we addressing all these things at this juncture is because of the second wave hitting us and hitting us really bad. Now, what has happened is when everything started way back in January and when the vaccination program started with the frontline workers getting vaccinated, 1st of March, if I recollect correctly, was the day when over 60 years started getting vaccinations. Over 45 started getting from 1st of April. And then 18 plus started in 1st of May. I completely second what Dr. Deepa has mentioned, that we ought to have planned all these things well in advance, because today what is happening is because of the second wave, all of us are wanting to get ourselves as well as our kids vaccinated. As Dr. Deepa mentioned that less than 18 years, we don't know when the vaccination is going to come. And the probability of the third wave hitting the children are going to be more. So basically, the issue is that we need to ramp up the manufacturing. Ramping up the manufacturing means voluntary licenses. Voluntary licenses being given to whosoever has the manufacturing capability. And as you rightly mentioned at the first instance, that the quality of the production has to be there. We can't just manufacture just because we need to manufacture. We need to ensure that the manufacturing happens in a quality way. And for that to happen, voluntary licenses from the technology owners need to come in. There needs to be some sort of a public-private partnerships, and see to it that these partnerships ramp up the manufacturing capabilities, because we need to ramp up the manufacturing capabilities. Otherwise, it's going to be a difficult situation.
Okay. Let me bring in Rahul again into the conversation. Rahul, you were very candid in the way you said that we need uniformity, we need apoliticalness, and we need to have the pragmatic approach to be able to solve it. Where do you think we're moving ahead with it, and what do you think will actually happen over the next 4 to 6 weeks? Rahul?
Right. So, yeah, thanks. So one thing I realize is that there have been multiple reports that state governments are trying to procure the vaccine on their own from international manufacturers. There have been tenders that have been issued. So in light of these developments, what I see is that one major issue I anticipate is that, for example, if and all a state is able to procure a vaccine that is not yet available to the central government. So what are the indemnity issues? What are the other issues we are anticipating? Because some of the manufacturers like Pfizer has denied, I don't know the correct company, one company has denied to a state that we cannot supply to you. So I want to, what I would expect is that in next 4 to 6 weeks, all the stakeholders should sit together, be it central government and state government, and then bring out a uniform plan that this is what will happen, so that as a citizen, I am clear that, okay, I am comfortable waiting for next 4 weeks also for the dose of myself or my family members. But I should not be left to the mercy of this platform where there are hacks by the techies, where you can book the slot for 40 kilometers away. You can go to vaccination center and you can take the slot of some rural place going from a city. Like this all is happening. I have seen in my close network, right? So I need to make these things you can't blame on people because we have no clarity. Whatever is available, we'll jump on that. So we need some clarity as to what will happen, and there has to be uniformity. And once that is there, at least the storm will settle as far as the vaccination is concerned. No matter the doses are limited, at least be upfront with it, acknowledge the problem, and then give a way out to the citizens that, okay, if you are healthy, if you are in the healthier age bracket, no comorbidities, you can wait and let others, be in the priority to get the vaccination. The frontline workers, people who are teaching, when it comes to lawyers, we are sitting at our home. We have the facility of high-speed internet, video facility, but court staff is there. So treat a particular segment from each sector and let them be at the front line to get the vaccine so that the quantity can be optimized rather than getting into debates and then, there's chaos at the public level. That would be my expectation.
Thank you. Finally, let me bring in Sukadev for his final comments, and then we'll do closing comments. Sukadev?
Yes. I would like to come with some statistics here as far as the vaccine timeline is concerned, as per the affidavit filed by the center. So they have said, and this is all in terms of how it would be, 2 months hence, that's in July. So they say that, they're going to have, overall, there are 3 vaccines in the country right now, as we are all aware. There is Sputnik, then there is Covishield, and there's Covaxin. So as per the affidavit filed by the center, so there would be, production capacity would be ramped up, and we're looking at around 9 crores per month for all these vaccines. So if we look at the population of India, I think it's 137 crores or something. We are soon going to overtake China, maybe. So there, maybe, and we are now vaccinating only the adult population, maybe which would be 100 crores, roughly. It's a rough estimation, I may be wrong there. So if we look at this simple statistics, there is no way we're going to vaccinate the complete population by December of this year. That is a given. So, but I think if we get to these figures also by July, it is a good start. Definitely a good start. It will accelerate the vaccination program, and I think it's a good way to go. And I think we have to be mindful of other things, like on a lighter note, I would say, we have all seen that there are drive-in vaccinations happening for free, right? And who drives in? Like Deepa has already mentioned earlier that there are people who can pay for the vaccines. So on a very light note, there was. Somebody shared a similar drive-in like that in our society group yesterday, and I just see the lady mentioned that it's for poor people. So I, in a moment of jest, or on a lighter vein, I said, poor people in cars. So are the poor people going to come in cars and get themselves vaccinated for free? So so this is one place where we can look at vaccinating the poorer section of the population. We should not be giving it out for free to people who can afford it, because right now we are not giving it for free to anyone, right? So generally, so we should be looking at smaller towns and villages where, or even in the big metros, we should not be we should not be I think we should not be giving it for free to people who can afford it. That's one way to sort of try to plug this gap between supply and access. So
Thank you so much.
That would be my thought for now.
It's very interesting, and you're right. There are what we call contradictions in the policy, and I hope as we move forward there is more detailed thinking and more thinking in terms of what is the right way to do it. But let me take some audience question. Govind Shata is saying, and he's giving a preamble to it, but basically he's asking, and I'll take this to all of you because it's a very important question. He says typical vaccine manufacturing plant will use in the region of 9,000 different materials sourced from 300 suppliers across approximately 30 different countries. And he gives this estimate from the International Federation of Pharmaceutical Manufacturers and a WTO report. So he says that the IP waiver looks like a smokescreen to manage public sentiment for political gains. And his question to you, all of you specifically, and I'd like all of you to take this and give me your view, that the countries having vaccine patents are the same countries controlling the raw materials for vaccine. So is this whole exercise of IP waiver futile? First, Dr. Tikku, and then I'll go round the house. Dr. Tikku, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you. I think we have, in a way, answered it in bits and pieces. But Govind is right. This is not going to be the solution, as I mentioned. This is a long effort, a long negotiation which will happen. It's not easy to negotiate because there are so many nuances involved in it. Right now, 100 countries have given, but even if one country does not ratify it, it will not go through. So the issue is that even US has, while India and South Africa has asked for a blanket IP waiver for all kinds of COVID-related inventions, US has only come forward for vaccines, specifically for vaccines. And we all know that vaccine is also dependent upon a lot of know-how transfer. And actually, there is no legal binding on the companies to transfer their know-how. Nobody can force them or bully them into giving this know-how. Article 66.2 of the TRIPS also says that the developed countries should encourage the technology transfer from their, the innovators to the developing or the least developed countries. They can't say that you have to force them to do that. Nobody can do that. So there has to be a diplomatic engagement. There has to be an engagement at that level.
And Dr. Tikku, you know that the India's foreign minister right now in the US.
Absolutely.
Doing that diplomatic
absolutely,
engagement and hopefully a solution.
That's the way to go. You can't have extremes in this situation, because now again India has always been available for the world, because we are the largest manufacturer of generic medicines and export to the developing world. So right now, if we ramp up our manufacturing capacity, the international community understands that if they are able to help us ramp that manufacturing capacity, we will be able to supply even to the rest of the world, leave alone us internally. So I think it's up to the world, and at that level, the leaders and the companies, all stakeholders, to take this forward in a more fruitful way, rather than to say that an IP waiver will be the solution, because it hurts one party or the other. And that will not really result in any fruitful solution.
So Dev, your quick input, then Adish's and Rahul's.
Yes, I think I have more or less, given a very clear answer on this. Yes, IP waiver is not the solution to the present vaccine access, and it is very clearly evident even on an international scale. The WHO had they had started COVID-19 technology access pool, CTAP, that was launched in May 2020, and it bears mention here that not a single pharmaceutical company has signed up there on that platform to share the technologies, because like I said, the pharmaceutical world is a very complex ecosystem. So I think we should work on known factors, and we should try to go forward with what we have. And I think if you look at the compulsory licensing also, I think we all know that there was a compulsory license application filed by NATCO with respect to a drug for which rights are with Lilly. So Lilly was very prompt to give the voluntary license immediately. So it is not like, but yes, definitely in a circumstance where the voluntary license is being denied, certainly compulsory licensing can be resorted to, but that is not the first solution which we should go for. And I think the media, in part, there has been a big clamor from the media to for the government to invoke compulsory licensing. But I think we should not go on a very superficial note. We should scratch the surface. We should see what is inside, whether it will solve it. And my answer is no. The patent waiver will not solve it. Compulsory licensing will not solve it. And it's the way it is right now. It's fine, but we need more proactive collaboration and cooperation. That's what I would leave my thoughts with. Yeah.
Adish, your final comment before we wrap up, and Rahul, your final comment. First Adish and then Rahul.
Yeah. So I feel that there needs to be a balanced approach. As I think a couple of the panelists mentioned, it needs to be a win-win situation for everyone, including the innovators and including the government. So therefore, the balanced approach has to ensure that the technology license is taken from the technology owners to achieve a cost-effective and speed up the ramping of the production of the vaccines and see to it that it reaches all individuals in time.
Fantastic. So clearly, you are talking of a holistic approach where compulsory licensing ideally should not be the first line. There has to be, as Dr. Tikku said, and some of the comments from the audience, engagement with the stakeholders to be able to build what we need to build. So thank you for that. Rahul, you have the final laugh, your comments.
Yeah. So as far as the question is concerned, which we started before my closing comment. So yeah, IP discussion seems to be the smokescreen. Because if you look at the number of discussions on the IP side after the onset of second wave versus pre-onset of second wave, so it looks like the government has been caught red-handed, and because they have not placed the orders in time. So if whenever the phrase is being used from government side that we are the manufacturing hub for vaccines, all of those are contractual obligations. We are not doing it of our own free R&D will. So that means our R&D initiative is lower as compared to the contractual obligation. So we need to balance this scale to make sure that our R&D is able to afford vaccination for entire country. Because see, to be very honest, the question was that the countries that are talking about IP waiver are the same that are supplying raw material and they have excess supplies. So it was expected that the jurisdictions and the countries that have ultra premium research facility will only come up with vaccine and the supply quantity. So the government should have ordered in time. And now, since that ship has sailed, we need to acknowledge the mistake and move forward with a collaborative approach.
Thank you so much. It's been while you're lawyers, I see people who understand all the aspects, and that's what lawyers do. They bring out technical nuances, but they also bring out solutions. So thank you for bringing out the solution and a holistic approach. I'm grateful to you for joining this BW Business World and more importantly, a BW Legal World Dialogue. Hi. At 3 to 4 p.m., we will do our next BW Legal World webinar, which is on the new intermediary rules for social media that the government, which is again very hot, and clearly me being from the media and being the founder of Exchange for Media, I have a little more deeper view on that and a nuanced view on that. So I look forward to moderating that. I'm filling in for Ashima, Anisha, and Krishnendra is very brave in spite of not being well. He put up a suit and he's here. So I didn't bring you too much because I know you're exhausted. I know it takes you to a lot of effort to speak. So thank you so much, Dr. Tikku, Sukadev, Adish and Rahul for joining in. We look forward to engaging more with you both on BW Legal World and BW Business World platforms. BW Legal World, second edition of the 40 under 40 young leaders of the legal domain is on. So I would encourage you to spread the word, participate. We have a stellar jury, like a all-time best 11 like last year. We also have launched the BW Legal World 30 under 30. It's the first year, and some of our winners from our 4 awards have been part of it. Plus a stellar jury, including Ms. Behram Vakil and so on and so forth. So clearly, would encourage the panelists on this broadcast to spread the word around. Keep doing great work. Thank you for participating in this very important discussion. And I hope next time we meet, this issue is resolved and we are well on our way to producing vaccines and distributing vaccines the right. Thank you so much. Have a blessed Saturday. Stay safe, stay indoors. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us.
Dr.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.